There are words of Jesus that you understand, but he doesn't understand. You listen, but he does not see. You read, but it does not capture what is behind. Parables are not just stories. These are not illustrations. They are not pretty metaphors to explain simple truths. Parables are codes, spiritual keys, maps of the kingdom hidden in phrases that seem ordinary but carry secrets from heaven. Jesus spoke in parables not because he wanted to make it easier, but because he wanted to separate those who listen out of curiosity from those who listen out of hunger. Separate those who see with the eyes from those who see with the Spirit. Separate those who want answers from those who want revelation. And that's why in Matthew 13, he said something that still echoes like thunder. To you it is given to know the mysteries of the kingdom, but not to them. Jesus did not want an audience. Jesus wanted disciples, and every disciple must learn to hear what he did not say clearly and to see what he did not put to the surface. Because behind every parable, there is a key that opens doors, that reveals paths, that exposes the heart, that awakens discernment, that prepares for the end, and that transforms lives from the inside out. These keys were there all along, in the mustard seed, in the hidden yeast, in the chaff mixed with the wheat, in the virgins who slept, in the servant who buried the talent, in the father who ran after his son. They are not stories. These are warnings, prophecies disguised in simplicity, rays of eternity hidden in scenes of ordinary life. And maybe you've spent your whole life listening to these paraboloses, never realizing the weight they carry. Jesus didn't want you to just get the literal meaning. He wanted you to open your eyes to what he was really saying. Because the kingdom does not reveal itself to those who want information, but for those who seek transformation. And today, we will open these keys, 5 keys, 5 revelations, 5 prophetic secrets that Jesus hid in full light, 5 messages that explain the kingdom, reveal the heart, warn of the end, and they put you within God's purpose. And the first key is what Jesus said the most and explained the least: the invisible kingdom. The first key is the invisible realm. The kingdom of God does not begin where the eyes reach. He begins where the world does not look. Jesus never said that the kingdom would come with noise, chariots of fire, human trumpets, or spectacular announcements. Jesus said that the kingdom would come as a seed, too small to attract attention, too deep to ignore. That's why he used the parable of the mustard seed. Because the kingdom does not impose itself, it grows. It doesn't invade, it transforms. It doesn't impress, he convinces. The kingdom does not begin on the outside, it begins within. And perhaps this is the greatest revelation behind the parables. Jesus was not talking about trees, fields, seeds, and loaves. He was talking about you, speaking of the way God works within the human soul, speaking of this silent, almost imperceptible way in which the Holy Spirit plants something inside the heart that, over time, changes everything around. The invisible kingdom is just that, something God does quietly before he does it in public. The world is looking for big signs, but God starts with small gestures. The world wants to move mountains, but God starts by moving the heart. The world wants miracles to be seen, but Jesus speaks of a seed that no one notices. Because true transformation is not in what happens on the outside. It's in what you let God do inside. The parable of the seed that grows alone is perhaps the most forgotten, but also one of the most profound. Jesus says that man sleeps, wakes up, lives his life normally, and without realizing it, the seed is growing within the earth. The farmer doesn't know how, doesn't know when, doesn't know why. He only knows that God is at work while he does not see. And maybe today you feel like this: nothing happening, nothing changing, nothing flourishing. But there is something germinating within you that will only appear when God says now, because the kingdom is invisible until the day it becomes impossible to ignore it. When the root finally breaks through the earth, when the sprout pierces the ground, when the life that was hidden begins to appear for all to see. Jesus told this parable because he knew that many discouraged seed lovers would break through. I knew that many would give up lovers if the miracle appeared. I knew that many would think that God was silent, when in fact he was working on the part that you don't see. The invisible kingdom is God planting, God watering, and God growing you inside. It is him preparing you for what you are not yet seeing. It's him transforming areas that you thought would never change. It is him breaking chains that you had already accepted as normal. It's him rooting you before he lifts you up. And this is the first hidden key in the parables. God always works in the invisible before revealing in the visible. Always plant in silence before honoring you in public. It always acts from the inside before transforming from the outside. And if that's speaking to you right now, so that key has already begun to open something within you. If that word has found space within you, if that seed began to germinate inside, so don't ignore what God is doing now. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell on the right side, share this message with someone, and leave it here in the comments. Lord, reveal your kingdom within me. Because when you respond to what the Spirit sows, the kingdom ceases to be invisible and begins to become life within you. Second key, discernment of the end times. Jesus never spoke of the end to provoke fear. He spoke to produce discernment. And among all the parables, there are three that carry such great prophetic weight that they seem to have been written for this generation. The 10 virgins, the wheat and the tares, and the talents. Jesus was saying something silent but urgent. The end will not be announced, will be noticed, not by those who study signs, but by those who keep the lamp burning. The time of the end will not be for the curious, it will be for the vigilantes. In the parable of the 10 virgins, they were all in the same place, they all had lamps, they were all waiting for the bridegroom, but not all of them were prepared. Jesus was showing that in the last days, the difference will not be in appearance, it will be in the oil that no one sees, the oil that is not bought at the last minute, the oil that represents intimacy, permanence, and vigilance. 5 slept with oil, 5 slept empty. The difference wasn't sleep, was the reserve. In the parable of the wheat and the tares, Jesus reveals another key. At the end of time, the false and the true will grow together. There will be no pure field. There will be no isolated environment. The tares will look like wheat until the last moment, and that means the end will require deep discernment, the ability to see beyond appearances, beyond beautiful words, beyond visible signs. Because according to Jesus, the tares reveal their nature only in the harvest. That is, some things will only be understood in the end. And then comes the parable of the talents, one of the most misunderstood. Jesus was not talking about money, nor natural abilities. He was talking about spiritual responsibility. The servant who hid the talent was not condemned for lack of skill. He was condemned for lack of fidelity. Jesus was showing that in the last days, the greatest danger is not to make mistakes. It is to bury. Bury the call, bury the purpose, bury what God has entrusted to you. In the end, what he will ask is not, did you get everything right? But rather, Have you been faithful to what I have given you? These three parables form a single message. The end will not be perceived by the eyes, but by the Spirit. He will not be identified by signs in heaven, but by signs in the heart. It won't be about fear. It will be about readiness. Jesus is saying that in the final days, the world will be distracted, faith will be divided, and many will have the appearance of spirituality, but without oil, without root, without fidelity. And here is the deepest point of this key. Discernment of the end is not recognizing events. It is to recognize the state of your soul. Because when the bridegroom comes, when the harvest begins, when the Lord returns, there will be no time to prepare for what you have ignored all your life. Jesus left this key hidden in the parables as a silent warning. The end will not warn, it will separate. Third key, the heart before God. If there is a place where Jesus' parables shine most brightly, it is within the human heart. Because there is no story of Jesus that does not point directly or indirectly to what really matters to God, the state of the soul. Jesus knew that human beings can master theology, memorize verses, attend temples, do works, and yet keep your heart apart. That is why he told parables that confront the innermost self, that expose intentions, that lay bare hidden motivations. And none does this with as much precision as that of the prodigal son and the merciless servant. The parable of the prodigal son is not about rebellion. It's about return, and about something even deeper, about the Father knowing the hearts of his children even when they do not know their own hearts. When the son asks for the inheritance, he's not asking for money. He is saying, "Father, I want what is yours, but I do not want your presence." And this is one of the most dangerous prayers that exists, to want God's gifts, but not the God of gifts. And when he returns repentant, the Father runs, hugs, celebrates, and then Jesus shows the other face of the human heart, the older brother, the one who never left home but was also never really close, the one who never sinned on the outside but lived far away on the inside. Jesus was showing that there are sinners who know they need to go back and religious people who don't know they're far away. That's why he also told the parable of the merciless servant, a man who received forgiveness of an unpayable debt but could not forgive a negligible amount. Jesus was saying, it's not about error, it's about the heart after the mistake. The mercy we receive should beget mercy. But when it does not generate, it reveals something. The heart has never been transformed, only relieved. And here comes the great key to this parable. God is not impressed by religious attitudes. He moves before broken hearts. The merciless servant was handed over to the executioners, not for lack of memory, but for lack of compassion. Not because I forget grace, but because I refuse grace to the other. The parable is about people who like to receive forgiveness, but don't want to let go. About people who love the cross, but don't want to carry the character of Christ. Listening to these stories, it is clear that Jesus was not just teaching doctrine, he was showing mirrors. Mirrors that reveal who we really are when no one is looking. Mirrors that expose pride, lack of mercy, internal intrigues, and hidden motivations. The parables of the heart are the most uncomfortable because they reveal something that we prefer to hide. Sometimes our greatest enemy is not sin. It is the heart that refuses to change. This is the third key hidden in the parables. The problem is not the error, it is the hardened heart. It's not the fall, it's the pride after the fall. It's not the distance, it's the lack of desire to return. That is why Jesus told stories that heal on the inside before correcting us on the outside. Because the kingdom begins in the place where the hands do not reach. but where God always looks, the heart. Fourth key, spiritual calling and responsibility. Among all of Jesus's parables, few confront us as directly as the parables of the talents and the watchful servant, because in them Jesus expounds a truth that many avoid. In the kingdom, existing is not enough. It is necessary to answer. Jesus was not concerned with explaining about human abilities. The parable of the talents is not about being more capable or smarter. It's about something much more serious, what you do with what God has placed in your hands. When the Lord of the parable gives the talents to the servants, he does not give explanations, does not impose pressure, and does not establish rigid rules. He simply trusts, and confidence is always a test. One gets 5, another gets 2, and another gets 1. It's not injustice, it's purpose. It's not inequality, it's responsibility. God will never give you what belongs to the other, but will always ask you for what belongs to you. The difference between the servants is not the quantity, it's the posture. 2 acted, 1 hid it. And Jesus leaves a profound detail. The servant who buried the talent did not lose it. He just didn't do anything to it. And this, for Jesus, is as serious as wasting, because ignoring the call is a silent form of disobedience. The unfaithful servant always has the same excuse. I was afraid. Fear of making mistakes, fear of not being enough, fear of not being able to cope, fear of not pleasing. But God never asked for perfection. He asked for faithfulness. The only thing the servant had to do was move, take a step, honor what you have received. But he chose to paralyze, and it is exactly here that Jesus reveals the hidden key. The greatest enemy of purpose is not failure. It is stagnation. People think that God is disappointed with their mistakes, but often what saddens his heart is not the mistake. It is the buried purpose. Jesus told this parable to confront those who spend their entire lives waiting for the perfect moment, to wake up those who have called but keep postponing, to awaken those who know what they should do but continue to keep within the land of insecurity. And then he tells another parable, that of the watchful servant. Some take care as if he is going to return at any moment. Others relax as if he will never return. Again, it's not about skill. It's about posture. It's about living as someone who knows that everything you do has eternal weight. Because the truth is this: the kingdom does not grow in the life of those who bury what they have received. The kingdom grows in the lives of those who take on what they have received. And perhaps Jesus left these parables to a generation like ours, a generation that knows a lot, feels a lot, hears a lot, but does little. A generation full of gifts, but empty of commitment, full of knowledge, but poor in fidelity. The fourth hidden key in the parables is this: God will not call you to what you cannot do, but he will charge you for what you have decided not to do. And he called you, and he trusted you. And he put something in there that is not small, it is not accidental, and it is not replaceable. The responsibility is great. Because in the end, when he returns, the phrase that every disciple wants to hear is not, "You were perfect." It is only, "Well done, good and faithful servant." And the fifth key, the final decision among all of Jesus' parables, there are a few that don't let us choose where to stay. They do not leave room for opinions, personal interpretations, or gray areas. They are parables that place us before an invisible line and say with silent firmness, "Decide." The parable of the wheat and the tares is the first of these. Jesus says that in the field of the world, the wheat and the tares grow together, not apart, not distant, not in different environments, but side by side. And that means that to the end, there will be genuine people and false people, changed hearts and hardened hearts, true disciples and superficial followers, in the same church, in the same society, in the same environment. It is an uncomfortable parable because it breaks the religious illusion that the people of God are isolated from the influence of evil. Jesus makes it clear, the tares will look like wheat until the last moment. It is not the appearance that reveals, it's the harvest. The second parable is that of the net. Jesus describes fishermen casting a net into the sea and gathering fish of all kinds. The network represents the reach of the kingdom, grace calling all, and the gospel embracing all flesh. But when the net is pulled ashore, there comes a time when no one likes to think. The good fish are kept and the bad ones are discarded. Jesus did not tell this story to scare. He told us to remind ourselves that the kingdom is inclusive in invitation, but selective in destination. Grace calls everyone, but not everyone allows it to transform them. The judgment is not about who entered the network. It's about who has been transformed within it. And then Jesus closes these parables with the strongest of all, that of the last judgment. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, he will separate peoples as a shepherd separates sheep from goats. Not by appearance, not by tradition, not by speech, but by fruits, for the love practiced, for the faith lived, for the reflected character. This is where the fifth key is revealed. The kingdom is a decision, and that decision shapes eternal destiny. Jesus did not demand perfection. He charged for delivery. He did not demand religiosity. He demanded repentance. He did not demand human wisdom. He demanded loyalty. In the end, the harvest will not be between good and bad, but between transformed and unprocessed. Among those who allowed the kingdom to grow within them and those who kept everything only on the surface. And perhaps that is why Jesus hid this key in parables, because only those who love the truth enough seek until they understand what it requires. The final decision does not take place before the throne. It happens now, here, in the silent choices, in the thoughts that no one sees, in the renunciations that only God knows, in the secret where the kingdom has grown is suffocated. Each parable is a loving plea, an invitation for you to let the tares die and the wheat flourish. A call for your soul to not only be reached by the network, but transformed within it. Because the kingdom is not a place you go to. It is a reality that you choose to carry. And on the day the Son returns, on that day when he separates light from darkness, truth from illusion, and living faith from dead religiosity, there will be only one question echoing in the heart of every person. What have you done with what I have given you? And that's the fifth key, the most profound, the most definitive, the one that leaves no room for excuses, the one that calls you to live today in a way that makes sense in eternity. Jesus did not tell parables to entertain. He was told to wake up. He took the invisible, the eternal, and the unshakable and wrapped it all in simple stories so that no one could say they didn't understand, but also so that only those who really sought could understand. Parables are like doors. Doors that only open when the heart desires the truth more than it desires to remain comfortable. And today you've gone through 5 of them. 5 keys that Jesus hid, not to push you away, but to bring you closer to the purpose. The first key reminded you that the kingdom begins within, in silence, in the invisible, where no one sees, but where God is always working. And if something started to move inside, it wasn't emotion, it was seed. The second key brought the alert of the end. Not the end that causes panic, but the end that calls for vigilance, because Jesus never asked you to be afraid of tomorrow. He asked you to have oil today. The The third key turned the mirror to the heart. He showed that God is not impressed by appearance, but is moved by surrendered hearts. And if any corner of the soul was exposed, it was not condemnation, it was grace. It was God saying, I can still turn this around. The fourth key rekindled the call. He recalled that everything God has placed in his hands carries purpose, and that burying what he received is wasting what he dreamed of. Perhaps today heaven has whispered within you, I still count on you. And the fifth key, the most serious, the most profound, the most definitive, reminded you that the kingdom demands decision, that eternity is not luck, it is not destiny, and it is not coincidence, it is choice. And you are living now in the time when the seed defines the harvest, the oil defines the door, and the fruit defines the path. But here's the beauty of it all. Jesus never reveals to condemn. He reveals the invitation. He invites us to return. It invites you to surrender. It invites awakening. It invites us to live a gospel that transforms from the inside and reflects on the outside. It invites us to carry the kingdom, not in our hands, but in our hearts. Because in the end, the day he returns, what he will seek is not perfection. It's true. It's not appearance. It is authenticity. It's not religiosity. It is transformation. And maybe this video was more than content. Maybe it was a meeting. Perhaps it was God saying, I hid keys for you to seek me. And now that you have found them, do not go back to living as if you did not know. Today is the day to open doors. Today is the day to let the kingdom in. Today is the day to respond to the call that echoes within your soul. If this word spoke to you, share it now so that others may awaken as well. Subscribe to the channel, activate the bell on the right side, and comment here, Lord, open the doors of your kingdom within me, because whoever responds to the call, he who seeks the truth, and who decides today, he does not fear tomorrow.